Welcome to Defining the Relationship with Danny Silk. This session is entitled You're Normal.
Today we have some family history to go over. All right, so this is some of the dynamics of what it is that created your normal. What's a normal expectation about how people live, how life goes? That's what we're going to do today. We're going to spend just a few moments tracking through mine and Sherry's relationship. We'll just throw that up on the screen for you to take a look at. And then we're going to draw some dynamics and some conclusions out of that so that you can see how my normal was shaped and how Sherry's normal was shaped, and then what causes the anxiety when we put those two normals together. See, that's what happens is you and I come to expect that things are going to be a certain way forever. And we bump into somebody who is really cool and really amazing, so much so that we're going to spend the rest of our life with this person. And then the longer we travel together, the more we realize, that has to change about you. And those places where we begin to discover that we see things so different, that begins to be another one of these anxiety points, another place where there's conflict. There's that difference about you challenges me, and I'm not sure what to do about it. So let me introduce you to a couple of folks who met one another. And these, I think, are my parents. That's my mom and dad right there. And my mom and dad had two boys. I have a younger brother, Johnny. Yes, really, little Johnny. And as time went on, mom and dad decided that they were going to get a divorce. And so they separate. I am 7 years old, and Johnny is 3 years old. And my dad gets married 2 more times and divorces. And my mom gets married 2 more times. And they finally both marry a 3rd time. So my brother decides that he's going to get divorced from his first wife, and he has a child from that relationship. He's now married and has been married for going on, I think, 19 years, 20 years probably, and has 2 girls from that relationship. And then along comes Sherry. And Sherry and I get married. Now, let me tell you about Sherry's mom and dad. Sherry's mom and dad get married, and they have some children. They have 4 children. They have 3 boys and Sherry. And Sherry's parents decide that they're going to get divorced. And Sherry's father remarries. Now, Sherry's mom had been married previously, and so she ends up with another man who has been married 2 other times. And he has 3 boys. So Sherry is the only girl of 7, and along comes Danny. Now, in these 2 family trees, we have multiple divorces amongst siblings. We have addiction. We have alcoholism. We have criminal violation that leads to prison. We have domestic violence on both sides. We have all kinds of stuff going on in our family tree, in our normal. While my mom was looking for a husband, she had a large number of men who lived with us. At one point, I was doing an autobiography of my life in my master's program, and I got to this one section of my life where my parents were divorced, and before my mom remarried the 2nd time, I stopped counting at 30 men that lived in our home in 4 years. And so that is my normal. That is what life as a little boy looks like. And then I'm 12 years old when my mom remarries. She's married for 3 years, and gets another divorce. So between the time I'm 12 and 15, I have a stepfather. And that stepfather's an alcoholic, and he's a super violent guy, not towards our family, but he's just in bar fights all the time. He's constantly all skinned up, scarred up from drunken brawls. And then, but he's my man print. He's my man template. We live in a small, rural, Northern California community that you could count the number of ethnic people that are in that town. Because when you see one, you go, oh! The town was so white. And this stepfather of mine is extremely racist. I don't even know why. But I began to become racist. My brother is super racist. And so as he goes through the army, he ends up fighting everywhere he goes. He's a barroom brawler. He is looking for somebody of another color to start a fight with because of the effects of a man print, of a template that he received in just a few years. Both our parents have codependency and alcoholism issues. All our siblings, for the most part, I think, have some sort of alcohol or addiction stuff going on. And that's all normal to us. I don't even know a Christian until I'm 17 years old, and the first Christian I meet is Chris Valentin. I was so not ready for Chris Valentin. I didn't get saved till I was 21. Sherry didn't get saved until she was 21. And so we have lots of years together to live out our templates. And so when we get married, we've both been saved for about a year. So we take all that momentum, all this family momentum, and we create our own family. And now we are going to try to figure out which template is the right one. Well, as you can guess, the answer is neither. Neither template is the one that we want to recreate and then live in and raise a family in. It's a challenge. It's a super challenge to create something you've never seen before. It's a super challenge to try to live a way that you don't know anybody who's doing it. Unfortunately, we had people like Bill and Benny Johnson in our life, and Charlie and Julie Harper, Chris and Kathy Valentin, and there's just a number, Bill and Judy Derryberry, there's just a number of amazing people that we could look at and go, all right. You see, I didn't know any people who'd been married their whole life. I'd never seen anybody who was married for a long period of time. So I wanted that. I longed for that, but I couldn't point to a single couple that had been married for more than 15 years. The skills, the behavior patterns that are handed to you, they affect the way you think. They affect the way you decide. They affect your reactions. Your DNA. There's just when you get around your spouse's family, you'll just notice the DNA strand at work. You all do this thing, all of you. You all do this thing with your eye. You all do that eye thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know. You all hold your mouth a certain way when you're upset. You all do that. You all do. It's exactly the same. It's so weird. You can point it out in your children. You can start having children here. Your mother does that. Oh my gosh, your mother got in our house. This DNA is powerful stuff. The environment that you grow up, powerful stuff. Now, they're not determiners, But they are influences. They are things that they create a unique challenge for you. Now you're aware of some influences in your family, but it's usually somebody else outside your family that points out and says, "Oh my gosh, you look so much like your dad." And when you look in the mirror, you go, "I don't look anything like my dad." "Oh yeah, you totally look like your dad. You totally do. Look at you guys. Look at it. See. I don't look that much like your dad." It usually takes somebody on the outside to point out to you that this is an influence that you picked up and you made it part of your normal. And you don't even know that you have absorbed that into what it is you live every day, how it is that you see everything, your opinions, your beliefs, the way you talk. If you were raised in the South, or Texas or Minnesota or something, California, I guess, has an accent as well. People say, "You're from California, aren't you?" Like, yeah, how'd you know that? You just act like a Californian. What? Dude. Yeah, there's just this thing I don't even know that I have that's California. This blending, this mixing is going to create some points of anxiety. Now, what I want to do is I want to do something. Well, I'll just do this. Here's a quick inventory for you. This is something that you can ask yourself and ask the person that you are interviewing, if we could call it that, "Hi, I understand you're here for a spouse interview." Well, welcome. Come on in, have a seat. But really what you're after is this. You want to know how this person interacted with the most significant other gender relationship in their life growing up. You want to know how that woman that you're looking at, how did she relate to her father between the ages of 11 and 20? What was your relationship experience like with your father, with the first man you ever fell in love with? I want to know what your template of love is. See, because little girls love their daddy. Little boys love their mommy. This is a love relationship experience. This is a template that all the family dynamics are experienced through, that will be repeated throughout the course of your life. If you don't change that, you will repeat that. How did you experience trust? Could you tell the truth? Could you be yourself? Was there an experience of honor? Were you powerful in that relationship? Or did you have to be powerless or angry to be powerful? What was the expectation of someone controlling themselves? Or was it your responsibility to make your dad happy? Was it your responsibility to make your mom happy? Whose job was it to control the life of the individual in your family? Was the goal connection or distance? Did you learn how to practice intimacy with that parent? Or did you learn how to protect yourself with varying degrees of distance? This is your template. This is what you're bringing with you. This is what feels like love to you. As crazy as it might have been, as disrespectful as it might have been, as many times as you've said, "I'll never, ever do that in my life ever again," it doesn't matter what you say. Look behind you at the trail of relationships, and what you'll notice is a pattern. I tried to recreate my relationship with my other gender parent. Well, what if I didn't have one? What if they were gone? What if I'm a young lady who grew up in a home without a father? You have a toolbox deficiency. You don't really know how to relate to a man. This is going to be a brand new experience for you. It's probably going to be pretty scary. But hopefully, you don't have a bunch of stuff to unlearn. But you have to fill that toolbox up. Because these guys are different animals. They're not ladies. And maybe you had a really great relationship with your mom, and you may try to turn your husband into your mom. Don't do that. It will be natural for you to try to turn your spouse into your relationship with your other parent. When Sherry and I get married, we are from two completely different lands. Sherry is the only girl with her mom in a system of 8 other males. Her father and her are very contentious, very disrespectful. The goal is distance. I have to protect myself from this abusive man. Her brothers, her brother right next to her, he's older than her, but he's the next one. Very abusive older brother. Very distant, disconnected other brother. Very dysfunctional, addicted other brother. The other 3 were stepbrothers who visited on occasion, but they were abusive and disrespectful as well. So Sherry's entire environment is composed of abusive male relationships. Distant or abusive male relationships. So she soon learns a set of tools. This is how you protect yourself from abusive males. And then she begins to attract abusive males. I'm raised by a single mom who has there's a male on the other side, but I never get connected to any of them. So I really don't have a father image until the first stepfather that I have, the second marriage. And now I have a stepfather, but a whole bunch of what he taught me it didn't really fit my personality or my temperament. But I'm fighting at school. I'm 13 years old and I'm drinking Coors. Drinking Coors because it's the best in the world. I'm 13 years old. I have a Coors belt buckle. And a Coors shirt because Coors is the best in the world. Lord Jesus. We both get saved. We both come into a new marriage, and we both realize that everything that we've experienced has to stay out there. We don't really know what to build in here. So we start asking people. But it isn't long before I realized that my mom was a very unhappy lady. She's a very unhappy lady. And my job in the relationship as the oldest son was to make her happy. I had a special magic that I could make my mom happy. I could do the right thing. I could just go to school and I was a star. I could do stuff that my brother 4 years younger than me couldn't do. I was just the dog and pony show. I just could just make my mom happy. And she would talk to me about her relationships with all these men and all the grief. And I would counsel my mom. I'm 9 years old talking to my mom about her messed up relationships. I am adultified at a young age. I'm involved in these deep conversations with a lady who's having all these problems. I'm good at this. I could fix unhappy women. So I married one. I married somebody who was unhappy and scared and angry and had amazing skills at keeping men away from her. But I have magic. I can make unhappy people happy. Here we go. So we get married quickly. We end up in a marriage where my magic does not work. Oh no. I've never met a woman I can't make happy. Oh no. Let me try this. Let me try that. Let me try this. Let me try harder. Let me try less. It's not working. And Sherry's never met a man she could trust, ever. And I remember laying in bed at night. We have a baby now. And I just lay there by myself because Sherry's in the other room because we were fighting again. I'm just crying because I have the rest of my life like this. What have I done? This is not how it's supposed to be. That's what happens without even trying. That stuff's laying in there, and it will pop up on the surface, and it will feel normal. It will feel normal that an unhappy person can be made happy. I can make you happy. Lucky for you, see, I'm the oldest child. I have the expectation to take more responsibility for other people than they take for themselves. I have this built into me. Sherry is the youngest child. The youngest child expects to be the center of the universe and everyone else will take care of them. This is a perfect match made in hell. And that is what we go to work to create. It isn't until there is some confrontation and there is some personal responsibility that begins to change the way we do our family. There were a number of places where this could have all come apart. There were numerous places where this was not going to last. It took a long time. It took way too long. It took about 13 and a half years before I learned something. See, it was easy to pin the problem on Sherry because Sherry was angry and creating distance. It was easy for everyone to see that this was really Sherry's problem. I'm the victim. Sherry's the problem. Come and rescue Danny. Poor Danny. But that wasn't true at all. All that did is it helped me stay stuck in my problem. And my problem was this: it came on the other side of a sozo. This was probably I think the most significant change in our relationship, and it was my fault. This whole time, I thought it was her fault. She needs to change. She went and had a sozo. We were pastoring a church in Weaverville. You can be a mess and pastor a church. Yes, it's true. There's more to that story than I'll tell right here. She goes in for a sozo. She comes back and she says, in the sozo, I discovered that I've never felt protected. And I thought, that's for sure. You were raised by the wolves. So you probably had to forgive your whole family. And then she finishes her sentence with, I've never felt protected by you. Me? I came up in the sozo? You're going to be kidding me. That's inside. On the outside, it was like, it was hard to hear, but I tried to listen as she kind of explained some more, because in my mind, it was, who protects the T-Rex? Who protects the T-Rex? Nobody protects the T-Rex. You protect everybody else from the T-Rex. And I had a beautiful case why I was right. Until I heard that. I've never felt protected by you. The realization came on me as, that would be because I've never thought of protecting you before. Which leaves you alone and vulnerable and scared. Which jacks up your anxiety, which brings out your worst. So I am actually part of the fear cycle in your life. I am feeding right into it, just like your father did. I swore to never become your father, and yet that's exactly what I've done. I've justified not protecting you. That day is the day I can say our marriage turned around. It is now between 10 and 15 years later, and it is a completely different second half since I have learned to protect Sherry. And her anxiety continues to drop. Her vulnerability begins to open. I begin to feel like connection is possible. She begins to trust and welcome that connection. And all of a sudden, we're experiencing something that nobody in our family has ever experienced before, because all of a sudden we are living completely different than what we were handed. Now that doesn't happen overnight. It'll happen much faster for you because you have stuff like this. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You don't have to spend all the hard yards. You can just make somebody else's ceiling your floor. We're going to talk more about communication and that sort of thing, but I want you to understand that there are two dynamics at work here. One is an Old Testament dynamic of the fact that the sins of the fathers will visit the children's children's children. And these are the sins of the fathers. The sins of the fathers are the places where we fall short. The places where the destroyer gets to come in and touch families and covenants and ruin them. Those avenues of sin really is what gets visited on the descending generations, because they are introduced as normal. This is just the way we do it here. Here is your normal. Go and do ye likewise. And so the children go and do what they were handed. And then they train their children in the same thing. And then there's a New Testament promise. A New Testament power. And that is that you can be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That you no longer have to conform to the patterns of this world. Romans 12. You no longer have to be stuck in the template that you were handed. Even the social template that you are raised in. No longer do you have to be conformed to the patterns of this world. But you get a new world introduced to you by having access to heaven. By having access to the Holy Spirit. And Luke tells us that that the axe is laid to the root of the tree. This is the passing of the old covenant to the new covenant, literally, is what Jesus is talking about here. But it is true in the application of how your family can be completely different. My family is completely different than the family that I was raised in. So many of us are afraid of that template. Now, some of you have a beautiful inheritance from a beautiful family, and you are. I hope you realize how blessed you are, because it is less common, especially in this generation and the generation to come, where families have been so blown apart because of the dissolving of a government of God. And people don't have faith. They don't have a boss. I don't have somebody I answer to except myself or somebody that can punish me. You have the opportunity to put that axe to the root of the tree that would try to shape the life that you're going to build, that your family's going to grow up in. You have an opportunity to change the template if you need to, or wherever you need to. Unlike most generations, you have a much greater opportunity. Living in a revival culture, realizing the manifest power of miracles, of the divine intervention of heaven, the power of declaration, the power of inner healing and deliverance. All the options that you have available to you and the person that you're going to team up with, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. But you have to understand, there is an influence that I may not be aware of. There is an influence that I have to be confrontable to hear. It has to be part of the way I live, is that people I respect and I trust and I love and I've given a place of government in my life, they can speak to me and say, hey, that thing that crawled through your family, destroying it, it's trying to get at you now. Get your axe out. Chop the head off that thing. Quit acting like a bonehead. Quit justifying yourself. Quit resisting what the Lord is trying to do in you. It is a challenge for many of us, especially as young men. I something called YMD. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Young Man's Disorder. And it's just a certain it's a lie, but it feels true, and it sounds like this. What makes you a man is that you figured it out yourself. So that's what makes you a man, is you figured this out yourself. That's usually what makes you a stupid man, is that you had to figure this out yourself, and you wouldn't let anybody influence you because you never learned how to ask for help. Now, it doesn't have to be limited to men. Ladies can get in on that too, but it is a powerful dysfunction to allow yourself to fall into the deception that it is weakness or that it is failure to ask for help. Now, I don't mean, hey, my arm just fell off. I think something's wrong. I mean that I make it part of the fabric of my life to invite input into my life. That I have governors established in my life. Ladies, if you end up with a guy who doesn't have that, please run away. Run away. Because you have just met God. Run away. You've just met an immovable object, an irresistible force that will do anything to get whatever he wants. including showing you whatever it is you want to see. I've seen it so many times, I just thought I'd bring it up. When you choose a leader that's the top of the food chain, you're in big trouble. When the man that you tie your life to doesn't have anybody that can influence them, you're in big trouble. That's another thing that's usually hiding in my tree. My man lessons. I want to know that the lady that I'm going to marry knows how to be vulnerable. Who knows how to live the truth, tell the truth to the most powerful male in her life. And if she doesn't know how to do that, I want to know what she's going to do about that before I become the most powerful male relationship in her life. See, because one of the things that makes you feel like a man is her vulnerability. Her willingness to trust you. Her willingness to believe in you. Her willingness to follow you. That's what makes you feel like a man. And when you don't have that, when she doesn't know how to do that because she has learned how to manage the distance between her and her father to this day maybe, or maybe they have a great relationship now because she doesn't live with him, but she is going to live with you. Oh, me and my dad, we have a great relationship, yeah. I see him every Christmas. Yeah. Well, unless you plan on seeing your wife once a year, there's a little work probably needs to be done there, especially if they had a really hard time when she was a teenager. Expect that, gentlemen, because there aren't a lot of families that teach their children intimacy. So you'll have to learn it somehow. You'll have to learn it somewhere. And intimacy isn't sex. We'll talk about that later. Intimacy has everything to do with truth. It has everything to do with vulnerability. Ladies, you're looking for a guy who knows how to form a soul tie. A non-sexual soul tie. Gentlemen, you're looking for somebody who knows how to be vulnerable. Let me go back to the soul tie. If you end up with somebody that is not connected to other people heart to heart, look at the guy you're interested in, look at his male friends. Look at his relationships with his friends. What type of friendships does he have? Well, he has coworkers. All right. Do you want to be a coworker? No, he has sports buddies. Okay. Do you want to be a sports buddy? No, he has covenant relationships with people that he would give his life for. I've watched him as he served them when they needed things, as he supported them in trials, as he lended his strength when they needed it, as he covered their shame, as he forgave, as he served. See, you're looking for a guy who knows how to make a non-sexual soul tie, and it starts with a covenant. Because if the only way that your guy knows how to experience intimacy is through a sexual relationship, you're in big trouble. And you're going to find it out early on in the relationship because you'll get pressured for sex. See, the idea that you would have a non-sexual engagement is a test, a demonstration of this man's willingness to supply you with something vital that you need. His inability to do that will translate into, give me sex so that you can have that need met. I'm not willing to protect you from me. Now, I understand a lot of this breaks down. A lot of folks, don't protect the non-sexual piece of their relationship. I get that. I just want you to understand what you're creating. Is that you're creating a template of self-serving relationship and manipulation. And what you're not doing is something vital that you do need, and that is the establishing of a soul tie. The establishing of a non-sexual soul tie between you and the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Big stuff. Classically, that's not part of our inheritance from our families. Because vulnerability, self-control, honor, responsibility, the 7 pillars, are not something that we focus on building before we focus on accelerating towards marriage. Or really, accelerating towards sex. We'll cover that more later. I just want to bring up to you that there is a powerful component to building a healthy relationship that most of us did not have demonstrated for us in our family template. You don't have to wait until you're married to start working on the renewing. It's a great time to start right now. Hopefully you already have. And that is, I expect to be able to join heart to heart in this relationship before sex is ever a distractor in it. God's not the big party pooper in the sky. He's really trying to set you up for an abundant life. But a lot of us just don't understand why, how. Here's why. Here's how. This issue of intimacy is huge. And we're going to talk about it in upcoming lessons. So put your hand on your heart. And Father, I pray for this group that we would have a revelation of how much you desire our intimacy. That we would learn what it is to be vulnerable with you. That we would learn what it means to tie our heart to your heart. That we would draw strength and joy and nourishment into our lives because of the intimacy we experience with you. And help us recognize that as normal. Help us to see that this peace and this trust and this life and this strength exchange heart to heart, that is normal. So Father, now in the name of Jesus, we lay the axe to the root of the tree that would try to bring past destruction into our generation. And we partner with you in a realization, in a revelation. Transform us through the renewing of our minds and the renewing of our expectations, that no longer are we conformed to the patterns of this world and what it values, but that we would draw heaven into our daily lives, our marriages, our families, our friendships, our love. Father, I pray that we glorify you in this love in Jesus' name. Amen.
If you would like information about this or any other product produced by Bethel Church, please visit us online at www.ibethel.org. or contact us at customerservice@ibethel.org.